country people, how una dey? I know say una dey well. Today I wanna tell una wetin our noble writer told us about our old politicians. He said they suppose go rest. If somebody work in the morning, work in the afternoon, for night, he suppose go rest. This one for Naija, they no want listen to it to us. They no want hear cha cha cha. But Wale Soyinka don't tell them, say, make them go sit down, allow the younger generation to take the stage. He tell them clear that they should go and sit down for the younger generation to carry on. That is how it's supposed to be. Let's hear him.
And I gave him exactly the same message. I said, whatever you people are planning, I'm convinced that we need a young generation, new thinking, new sensibilities, new energies. So why don't you just leave this stage? Let's look for somebody, a really brilliant individual, and then you use your influence to catapult that person to power. And this country will see a massive transformation. We spoke for about an hour and a half. In the end, Bola Tunubu said no. He said there were still things which he felt he could contribute. You know, I have not, Bola Tunubu and myself have not met. That's over getting to 5 years ago. We've not met once since. Simultaneously, we called willing and enthusiastic and brilliant young people together, and we said, look, come together, give us a candidate. We'll back that candidate with all our resources. We need somebody else at the helm of affairs. And so, for me, the emergence of the Peter Obi movement is the consequence of events like that, including, as I've stated, the NSARS movement. And all this was done in a democratic spirit. Persuasion, campaigning, mobilizing, sometimes even tutoring prospective candidates. Whether or not my position at the time towards Atiku or Tunubu was correct or not, that's not important. All I'm trying to tell you is to say that we acted out of conviction, and therefore we have absolutely no reason to appear even to be against any new generational possibility, potential, when in time for election comes. I have been distressed, however, by this certain aspects of this movement, which for me tended towards the fascistic. And we haven't come this way, all this distance, made all this sacrifice, to watch the entire procedure being jeopardized permanently with unpredictable consequences if we get to a situation where threatening medicine language is being used, where people are beginning to be afraid to talk, to advise, to contribute, simply because there's disagreement over tactics. And so this is what I was objecting to in Dati's performance. You can't say, give me this mandate. There's also a third person there, as Atiku, for instance. And in any case, the procedure is such that no one can say that we have seen terminus as yet. That's all. That's what I was criticizing. And I was very distressed to see this being reported as if saying, swear this person in, don't swear this person in. No, 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 no. That is a total distortion. And public discourse, I believe, is jeopardized when that kind of misinterpretation is made of something which I have said.
All right, Professor Soyinka, thank you very much for joining us. I just want to ask you, you have said that the statement made by Dati Ahmed is unbecoming. And what some people might want to ask you is, what part of his statement did you find unbecoming? Was it the entirety of his statement, or the fact that he had mentioned, and I quote, because a few things you had said, people feel that it was quite strong, bearing in mind that other actors in this political process have said perhaps even worse things. So it would be good for you to tell us what part of his statement you found unbecoming of a vice presidential candidate. And then the second aspect of this, since you've taken us back to pre-election and you speaking to the principle of front runners in the election process, is your assessment of the election process and the emergence of the president-elect?
Again, I must apologize to you and your audience if I didn't catch your question correctly. I lost about 2/3 of it. But I think I got the drift of what you were saying. And again, let me introduce myself further. I happen to be, again, that individual who, after an election which was massively rigged, who sat in the plane waiting for the final result, the authenticated results were brought to me. I was on my way to the United States to address a congressional hearing on the Nigerian elections, on those particular elections. And I said to them, the Oshomole people, I said, I will do nothing if I do not have the right documentation, the latest, authenticated in every respect, which I can present to the congressional hearing. It was brought to me from Edo State. It was brought to me while I was seated in the plane before the gates closed. With those documents, I was able to go confidently to Washington, where I met Inamani, by the way, and we joined forces to reverse the thinking of congressional hearing, which was already sold on the false results of the election throughout. The propaganda of the government then in power, I refuse to mention names, was so strong that when we got there, we found a hostile reception. However, armed with those documents, we reversed the thinking of the congressional hearing. Now, this is the kind of person I am. I do my homework thoroughly. I don't like being stampeded. I don't like people making claims which they have not thoroughly investigated and unleashed on the populace. And so when all these claims are going on, please remember, I was away during those elections, but as soon as I came back, having been bombarded right, left, and center by so many comments, links being sent to me, I then pursued my inquiry. And my statement when I did that interview was this, that it's not yet time. The last word has not been spoken on these elections. So do not threaten people and further alienate even those who were on your side from the beginning. That's the message. So when I use the example of Donald Trump, look at him now, a common felon who not only wanted to disrupt the entire system, to reimpose himself on the people, but went further and stormed the Capitol, resulting in some deaths, said, don't use language of incitement, which leads to that kind of result. And I don't care who doesn't want to hear it. I speak the truth. People they can listen, they may not listen, but there are precedents all over the world from which we can learn. And in this particular case, using the American system, it's normal to use, shall we say, models of events to teach ourselves certain various lessons. And so that's it. You know, when I summon Donald Trump, it's simply to tell people, you're beginning to behave like Donald Trump. And that's not very good for democracy in this country. That's all.
Well, Prof, the fascism that you observe in the conduct of the Third Force, at least some elements there, were you surprised? Isn't this part of the national character? And can we ever find a cure for Nigerians likely to behave like they are fascists?
Sorry, most of that I missed completely. So it's very difficult for me to even guess the thrust of your...
Okay, I was asking you about fascism. The fascism you criticize in the conduct of certain elements in the emergent third force. Were you surprised, considering the fact that Nigerians tend to behave generally like fascists, whether they are in politics or they are in any other aspect? Can we ever find a cure for that kind of behavior?
Any other acts? Please understand me. Civil action is always justifiable. In any situation of discontent, civil action is always possible. But then we also must be very guarded in our statement, the nature of civil action. If you say we're in a revolutionary state and we need a revolution, if you like a kind of show or a revolution now, then I understand your language. A particular direction has been plotted. But if we are not in a revolutionary state, if everyone is still observing the procedural aspects of an election, a democratic election, and we're waiting for results,